What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Fantasy Flex podcast from the Action Network and Fantasy Labs. I'm your host, Chris Raybon. NFL Week 12 is here. As always, I'm joined to talk about waivers by one of the most accurate fantasy rankers in the game, the odds maker, Sean Kerner. And Sean, I feel like we should just let the people in on what we were just talking about off air, which was how mad you were that you ranked Amir Abdullah high last week. But when you're on, man. Because he definitely scored a cheap touchdown.
Yeah, I don't know if I was mad. You were the mad one. But I did.
I mean, it's Amir Abdullah. I just assumed that we were both mad. We were sharing in this.
Like, you never want to be ranking Amir Abdullah like plus 15 against ECR, but why the hell not? It was going to be, trailing game script. He had led the Raiders in snaps the week before, but sure enough, both Madison and White went down. So I think Abdullah finished inside the top 30, maybe even the top 20. He had a good game. So, he might be right back there again this week. We'll see.
Yeah, we're going to talk about a Raiders running back in the running back segment of our pod. Maybe it'll be Amir Abdullah. Maybe it won't. That's a tease. But before we get into it, a quick reminder that Sean and I have teamed up with DraftKings, and they've got a new way to play fantasy basketball and win some serious cash prizes. It's called DraftKings Pick 6. Sean, you and I have both been watching the NBA already this season, so we're loving this. And here's how it works. You pick 2 to 6 NBA players. You choose if they're going to have more than or less than a stat. Stuff like points, assists, rebounds, three-pointers, all the box score stats. And it's peer-to-peer. You build a lineup of pick sets, and you compete against your opponents for cash prizes. And for tonight, I like taking a center rebound more than against the Lakers, especially when it's not too popular of a player. So I'm going to roll with John Collins more than 8.5 rebounds tonight. How about you, Sean?
I'm going to go something that kind of lends to all the strategies we've been talking about the past couple weeks, but I'm going to go Darius Garland, less than 19.5 points. The Cavs are undefeated. Garland's cleared this. He's cleared 25 points in 3 straight games. So would imagine most people are on his more than here, but this is a tough matchup against the Celtics. So I kind of like the less than here. And again, like I might be the only one that has less than, which gives you some nice leverage in these contests.
Yeah. Cleveland Cavs. I don't think anyone's going to be on the less thans with them. As you said, love it. We'll see how it goes. All right. If you want to play too and you're out there and you think it sounds fun, remember, all you got to do, go download the DraftKings Pick 6 app. And right now, new customers can play $5 on their first pick set and get 50 in Pick 6 credits. You just download the DraftKings Pick 6 app and use promo code FLEX6 at sign up. That's FLEX and the number 6 at sign up on the DraftKings Pick 6 app. All right, now it's time for NFL Week 12 waiver wire targets. Start the QB position, Sean Kerner. Who do you like? It's already Week 12. So, if you don't have a quarterback by now, there's still a couple options out there. And this one that you're about to talk about, I really like. So, get into it.
Yeah, it's Bo Nix available in 51% of leagues. It's wild that he's available in around half the leagues. I'm guessing a lot of those ones he's available are unserious leagues or dead leagues, something like that. But again, I have no way of knowing if you're listening to me who's available in your league. But if Bo Nix is, you should consider him not only as your QB this week. This week we have 6 teams on a bye, so you might need a streamer play. But he's also a solid option rest of the season. I think he's going to be a QB1 the rest of the way. So, he just keeps getting better and better as a passer. He hasn't been using his legs as much. He's actually been held under 10 rushing yards in 3 of the last 4 games, but it hasn't mattered because he's thrown multiple touchdowns in 3 of those games. So he just has a very strong floor ceiling combo right now. Eventually he's going to put it all together where he throws multiple touchdowns and uses his legs. So he's my QB8 this week, has a great matchup against the Raiders. But going forward, he's going to be offering, low-end QB1 value. So if you need a long-term solution, short-term solution, Bo Nix should be your guy if he's available.
Yeah, he's my QB8 as well. I
Nice.
love Bo Nix. I think he is the rich man's, like, Taysom Hill. Like, Sean Payton looks at him and he sees Taysom Hill, who's actually a quarterback. Like, he can run. He can do all that good stuff. When he's like 35, who knows? But he's a beast. And he's, like you said, he's getting better and better throwing the football. And so is the guy I'm about to talk about. That's Anthony Richardson. He's available in 56% of leagues at ESPN. So better than 50-50 chance he's available in your league. I think this is another good spot for him. A much better spot, actually, than last week against the Jets, which was outdoors, on the road in his first game back. This one at home, indoors, against the Detroit Lions, who do have a good pass defense, but they've struggled against running quarterbacks. They've given up 29 or more yards to half the quarterbacks they faced, and we know the Lions are going to put up points. So Anthony Richardson has a few different ways to get there. He could get there, the traditional way. He could get there on the ground, the explosives, the come from behind. And by the way, 20 of 30 last week for 272 yards, touchdown, no interceptions, 2 touchdowns on the ground, including the game winner, a couple of mean truck sticks, and he had an 88% on target rate, which is not just one of his highest of his career, if not the highest, I believe, but top 10 percentile of all starting quarterbacks this year. So maybe he just needed that break. He just needed to go to the sidelines, clear his head, because he looked like a different dude out there. And I like the way they were calling up the plays for him. They gave him options where, he didn't overthink it, but he had quick options. If he wanted to hold the ball, they had routes for that too. So I really like what they're doing. And that was really the issue with the Colts. I mean, they got the offensive line, they got the running back. By the way, he didn't get any help from last week, and his left tackle was out. So, Anthony Richardson suddenly trending up. And this is a guy a lot of us drafted as a top 8 quarterback this year. So don't forget that. I remember, Sean, you were down on him, but he was being drafted like as a top 6 guy. So now you could pick him up, and over half of the leagues, he's free. So yeah, man, make sure you get Anthony Richardson, Bo Nix. It's both of those guys. I think it's the combination of the legs and the throwing ability that you're going to have different ways to get there each and every week. So love both of those guys.
Yeah, I love the fact that you get to pick him up now. That was kind of my whole point was, what was he, the QB6? I mean, he's God's gift to fantasy football if he puts it all together. But QB6 is pretty rich, especially when, Jaden Daniels you could get much later. So it all worked out. Looked great last week. He looked great last week. His completion prop was just 13.5. He shattered that. So, yeah, if he's available, for sure pick him up.
I mean, Jaden Daniels, that was like September. Like, we're on to Bo Nix now. Like, it's Bo Nix time.
Yeah, sure.
As far as the rookie
especially
quarterback
with
go.
The Cliff Kingsbury drop. Maybe the whole time it wasn't Call of Duty ruining Kyler Murray. It was Cliff Kingsbury. It seems like this time of year, his quarterbacks always fall off the cliff. So maybe he's the problem.
Oh, man. Yeah, I have a feeling he'll be a lot better against Dallas.
Yeah.
Let's go to running back, and a few injuries for the Raiders. We kind of alluded to it earlier. Who are you targeting in that backfield?
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't know if I'm targeting him, but I'm going to talk about Zamir White, who's available in 74% of leagues. Alexander Mattison could miss some time with this ankle injury. Before the injury, it looked like Zamir White was, pretty much an even timeshare with Mattison. So he'd be the lead back, if Mattison were to miss time. But even Zamir White himself left the game with a quad injury. So we have to monitor his status. But I think a lot of people are going to want to, stash White just in case Madison's out. He suits up. But like we talked about, this could be another Amir Abdullah game, especially if both of these running backs are ruled out. It's going to have to be. But either way, this could be a trailing game script, which would lend to Abdullah anyway. But again, if you're looking for a desperation RB3 flex option with 6 teams on a bye, White is worth a flyer, but I would not go crazy on it. I would not, bid a ton of fab or spend a high waiver to get him for a potential 1 week, flyer. But having said that, so again, I still think the best running backs to add or stash are the ones I provide my tiers every week that have top 15 value. Like if the starting back were missed time, like Blake Corum, Trey Benson, Zach Charbonnet. But having said that, the running back position has been insanely healthy this year. I think the only week 1 starter not playing this week, well, he might actually play this week, is Isaiah Pacheco, right? Every single week 1 starting running back is healthy and playing right now. So there just hasn't been much waiver, ads we've needed to add the past few weeks. So having said that, that's why Zamir White stands out. But again, this has not been like a fruitful past few weeks at the running back position.
Yeah, and then like you're totally in the Zamir White bubble because nobody wants to stash Zamir White. Like no one's probably thinking of like Zamir White has been. I was so dismayed because I was actually excited about him earlier this year, and he looked good at the end of last year, and then he just didn't look like the same player this year. So I don't think anyone's rushing. So I don't think there'll be like a lot of competition for him. Right. But I just throw that out there. I'm just saying.
Who the hell are people supposed to add? Emmanuel Wilson?
There's no Brooks,
one. Yeah, see, exactly my point. There's no one to run out and get. So again, if Blake Corum's sitting there, add him, because in the event Kyron Williams misses a game, Blake Corum's going to be inside my top 10, maybe my top 5. So again, we're just sitting on backs that have top 15 upside, not hoping their starting running back gets hurt, of course, but in the event they do, you just want a guy with a ton of upside. So yeah, I agree. Like I am not rushing out to get Zamir White. But again, there's 6 teams on bye this week. People are desperate, Raybon. Desperate.
Oh yeah, I know. The Raiders are desperate for Zamir White to gain a yard. All right, Cam Akers. I think he might have some fantasy points left in him on that Achilles, on that one Achilles or whatever it is. Aaron Jones just looks a little bit off. Cam Akers is available in 83% of leagues, and his snap counts are going up 16, 26, 27 the last 3 weeks. This is his second stint on the Minnesota Vikings. So Kevin O'Connell obviously has some type of man crush on him. And like I said, Aaron Jones doesn't look quite right. He's not playing quite as well as he was earlier this year. Now, I know he had an injury a couple of weeks ago, and he's been playing through it, but this could be a situation where the Vikings 8-2, eyes on the playoffs, they might want to conserve Aaron Jones. Remember when he made that run at the end of the regular season for the Packers last year and into the playoffs, 20 carries plus each and every game? Well, if he's going to do that, this would be the time of year where you see a little bit more of Cam Akers. They don't trust Ty Chandler. Got one snap, last game. It's just Akers and Jones in this backfield right now. So I think Chandler could reemerge if there is, a big need for a pass catching back out of the backfield. But for blocking, they usually use the fullback CJ Ham, and Akers actually caught a touchdown last week. So I think he's a pretty good stash. Agree on Corum, and still picking up Jalen Wright if I have space for him too, even though it looks like Mostert's not going to be miss too much time. And I think he might still be jumped by Wright. So it's just kind of a wait and see. But Wright now, the minute Wright gets more playing time, now he's not looking as good as he was like every single week when he was the RB3. He made like 5 amazing plays, not 5, but he made like at least something to jump off the screen. And now it's like 5 touches for 4 yards these past couple of weeks. So still stashing him where I can, but I think Akers is actually the guy that might pay immediate dividends. All right, wide receiver. Who you like?
First up, I feel like I've mentioned it. This is like the 3rd week in a row I mentioned him, but Quentin Johnston, available in 59% of leagues. I mean, he was a first-round pick last year, still in the middle of a breakout season, and he's somehow still available in 60% of leagues. And now he has a great matchup here against the Ravens. So he's my, wide receiver 21 to open up the week. So it's not every year you have, a first-round pick from a year ago offering low-end wide receiver 2 value available in this many leagues. It's just mind-boggling to me. So please add him if you still can. And next up, a little bit of a less sexy option. You just have to add Quentin Johnston at this point. would be Xavier Legette, available in 72% of leagues. He's a solid rookie wide receiver. Now coming off a bye. I know you like mentioning rookie wide receivers coming off a bye. He's had plenty of time now to get better chemistry with Bryce Young. I like the fact that they're sticking with Bryce Young for now. And they've been thin at wide receiver after trading away Deontay Johnson, Jonathan Mingo. So he's been sort of the guy. And, Adam Thielen could return this week, but which will ding Liga a little bit. But still, I think they might ease him back into action. So I think you can get, especially on a week with 6 teams on a bye, emergency wide receiver 3 flex value out of Legette. And who knows, he could break out, following this bye week. Rest of the season, we'll see. But he has enough upside to stash if you're in a situation where it makes sense to add him. But other than that, again, if Quentin Johnston's available, you have to add him at this point.
What bubble are you in where Xavier Legette is not sexier than Quentin Johnston? Like, he's actually good as a rookie. Like, I think he's sexier than Johnston, because Johnston took a year. Remember, we were watching him with the third stringers at SoFi and the preseason.
Well,
so I think Legette
right?
is actually the sexier pick. It's just the quarterback situation. But couple wins in a row. Maybe it's just a bunch of extended garbage time this week against the Chiefs. Who knows? So yeah, I like Legette. I think he's right now at this stage a better receiver than Adam Thielen is. Like, Adam Thielen has a great career, but he's kind of on his last legs. So I think Legette is locked in. Either Coker or David Moore, combination of them are probably going to have to split the number 3. But I think Legette is locked into 90% of those Panthers snaps.
Part of my sexy part is who's throwing him the ball. I mean, Quentin Johnston has half man, half beast Justin Herbert throwing him the ball, whereas Legette still has Bryce Young. So I'm factoring that in when I'm using my sexy term there. But yeah, I think that's why a lot of people wrote off Quentin Johnston, because he wasn't good as a rookie. But it's not fair. Like, wide receivers need to produce early on, or else they do tend to be busts. But with Johnson, I think we owed him another year, and he's been proving it. So again, he's a talented receiver that needed apparently a couple years to hit the ground running, and like, he's having a breakout season, so he should be scooped up in most leagues by now. Yeah,
it's he's following the Mike Williams path, where really bad the first year, and then kind of put it together with a beast quarterback. I'll just mention a stash, because those are the guys I would have talked about too. But still stash Marquez Valdez-Scantling, another guy probably isn't sexy. I mean, he's been around and really never been productive until he started getting it going in the playoffs for the Chiefs a little bit last year. But last 2 games with the Saints, also first 2 games with the Saints, 3 catches, 109 yards, and 2 tutties, and then 2 catches and an 87-yard touchdown last week. That's what you're going to get with MVS. But at this stage, he's got the big play upside. But remember, this is an offense that lost Olave and Shaheed, but Carr is back. And remember how Carr was just bombing it to Shaheed, and Shaheed would put up that kind of line like every other game too. So he's going to get the most routes most weeks, if not all weeks, on this Saints team. As long as Carr's in there and healthy, you might get Rashid Shaheed production from MVS, as crazy as that sounds. But before the season started, I mean, even Rashid Shaheed, I don't think a lot of people figured he was going to blow up like that, even if you liked him as a sleeper, which I did. So, yeah, at this stage, I say just leave MVS on your bench. You never know when the injuries are going to start to hit. So even if you're flexing a running back right now because they've all stayed healthy, there might come a time where you just need that extra wide receiver, even if it's just for your flex position. So I think at this point, you just want guys who are going to get a lot of snaps and have high upside, and MVS certainly is a guy like that. And because they're on, bye, they're going to be able to work them in a little more too.
Yeah, I mean, he and Rashid Shaheed are literally that Spider-Man meme pointing at each other. That's exactly MVS's skill set. So it's not shocking that he's thriving in that role. And he's nice to have if you're like a massive underdog, 1 week, even if he's like outside of our top 40 or whatever, he's a nice weapon to have, because if you're an underdog, you just need a massive game and you can kind of survive if he puts up a dud. So it's always nice to have like a stash like that on your bench.
Meanwhile, the Bills out here, trading picks, calling guys up from the practice squad, like trying to cobble together a functional receiver group with all their injuries. And they had MVS and a quarterback who can throw those same type of passes. So it's kind of hilarious
exactly
how that goes. And before we move on, here a quick announcement. Action Network is running back our annual Black Friday sale, offering our best price of the year on a year-long Action Pro subscription. If you're still on a Pro subscriber, visit actionnetwork.com/Black Friday, and you can get $40 off a year of Pro. Receive instant access to all of the picks and projections from myself, Sean Kerner, Stuckey, and the whole Action Network squad. That's actionnetwork.com/Black Friday for the best price of the year on Action Pro. But we shall go to the tight end position. And last week was a fun week for tight ends. It was kind of a weird week where it was like, there was like guys, it felt like there was a glut of guys that were great, like low end tight end ones, but not a lot of like mid range guys. Like, and one of these guys, both of these guys we're about to talk about, and tell you to pick up, were kind of on that fringe and came through in a big way. Why don't you start us off?
Yeah, so Sam Laporta, Dallas Goedert, T.J. Hawkinson, Mark Andrews, get out. Will Disley, get in here. You are the only one of those 4 or 5 that I rattled off. That is in my top 10 this week. But I talked him up all week. He went off for 4 catches, 80 yards and a touchdown. I have my Will Disley jersey a couple days away at this point, but I'm all in on the Disley train right now. His underlying usage has been great since their week 6 bye. And even after Hayden Hurst returned from his injury, he maintained that role. And last week, they even made Hayden Hurst a healthy scratch. So this is, clearly Disley's tight end room. And like I mentioned last week, when he was on the Seahawks, anytime he was healthy and, operating as their lead pass catching tight end, he was excellent. So I think he'll be able to keep this up this week. Great matchup again, against the Ravens, where the Chargers are going to have to throw. So he's inside my top 10 this week. And I think with this usage, he could be a low end tight end one the rest of the season.
Yeah. I mean, Disley was so far ahead in that tight end room. The Hayden Hurst scratch wasn't even about Disley. It was about Stone Smart. Stone Smart was back. And so they were like, all right, Hayden Hurst, you don't need you anymore. But Disley's locked
Fisk
in
too.
Yeah. Tucker Fisk is a good blocker. They've been, he's out there. And then they got the Matlock, the defensive fullback, Ricard kind of odd bunch, that Charger team. They're making it work. They're making it work.
I was going to say this is also a revenge spot for Disley, but he's actually the only player that didn't used to play for the Ravens. So I stand corrected.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's speaking of guys, I mean, he didn't play for the Ravens, but Jonnu Smith, I remember he had a big playoff game against the Ravens for the Titans that year. The Titans went to the AFC Championship with Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry, who's now on the Ravens. And it's Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith on the Dolphins. At one point last week, I turned away from Red Zone, and I turned back, and I see like a Dolphin catching a long touchdown. And I'm thinking, like, is that Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle? Because I didn't get to see the number. And
they beefed up Jalen Waddle.
Right. Yeah. And I just kind of like turned and I was like, oh, I assumed it was Waddle or Hill when you see a Dolphin running free that far away from people. But yeah, Jonnu, his snaps have been up, and I think they've kind of just settled on, okay, like he's gonna be our main tight end. They have Smythe and they have Julian Hill, but those guys kind of fill other roles that are not really pass catching roles. So Jonnu goes for 6 for 101 and 2 touchdowns last week, but he's been playing essentially a slot receiver role for pretty much the last month. Last 3 games, he's averaging an 80% route rate, and it went up to over 90% last week. So I think we should see him continue to get opportunities in this Dolphin offense, because they've needed another guy. Odell Beckham got some catches too, but he's not the same Odell Beckham as he was earlier in his career. So just having, Hill, Waddle, and you have HN in the backfield, But to have a guy like Jonnu Smith, I think that's really kind of unlocking this offense. And we saw that earlier this year. I don't know why they just didn't stick with it. I think he had a really good game. It was week 2 against Buffalo, 6 catches for 53, kind of disappears for another few weeks. But, since that New England game where he had 5 catches for 68, followed that up with 96 yards and a touchdown against the Colts, then right after that, started playing pretty much every down kind of role. And he finally put up a massive ceiling game last week. So, yeah, like him and this Dolphin team, this offense kind of been slow to start. So I think people might be overlooking him a little, or may look at it as a little bit fluky, but the underlying usage has been there. The talent has always been there. So, like Jonnu, and pretty good matchup against the Patriots.
Revenge
this week.
Revenge game.
Yeah, revenge spot.
But remember, there's been some players where they just, they're playing as good as their numbers look. Like, I think in 2022, we were talking about, James Conner.
James Conner, yeah.
Was tearing up. Just watch him play. He looks like a beast right now. Last year, it was, Evan Ingram and David Njoku. Yeah. Were the two guys that we were like, oh, my God, they actually look as good as their numbers. This year, it's got to be Jonnu Smith, because if you watch him, he's playing as well as these numbers look. He has looked amazing, a completely different tight end this year, and the numbers have been backing it up. But he kind of reminds me of those other examples from years past.
Yeah, I think because this time of year, you've played for 10, 11 weeks, essentially, almost 3 months. A lot of guys are banged up. A lot of guys aren't fully healthy. A lot of guys, you hear that they were playing through an injury after the season's over. They're not going to disclose that for competitive advantage reasons. And some guys just aren't. Some guys are just fully good to go, and you could see it kind of pop out. I would say George Pickens, another guy like that. He had all the issues early in the year, and now it's he's every time he touches, even when he's blocking, he just looks just revved up, ready to go, charged up. And Jonnu does too. There's a men among boys out there, and that's good for Jonnu because he's been in the league for a little while. Maybe he's going to go on to be the new Delaney Walker. Seeing if we're going to make the Titans comparisons. Nice. But I could see him staying in the league for a long time because he looks good. I totally agree. All right, let's go to our if you haven't stashed Taysom Hill by now, he's still available. I'm seeing in 54% of leagues. What more do you need? We say this every single week. This guy has ridiculous upside. Half the time in one of our other pods, he's the subject of our prop or whatever it might be. But I'm still seeing that 46% of people playing fantasy football on ESPN, at least, have not recognized the greatness that is Taysom Hill.
He was a top 5 running back last week and a top 5 tight end. And you could play him at tight end. It's just insane. And again, he might have the occasional dud, but so does every other tight end. So why would you not have him and play him at this point?
Yeah, I was on the Browns last week. I think you were too. We lost to Taysom Hill alone. He scored more. He essentially outscored the entire Browns by himself. Yep. And I think he lost a fumble and he was just doing it all.
He threw a pick too.
Yeah,
again,
right.
-1. Who cares?
Yeah. No, he's in his mid-30s. Another guy who just some of these guys, man, you get to late in the year and they're still running around like this.
It must have been 15 years ago at this point. He was must play in DFS, college football DFS.
Right, yeah. It seems like another era, another generation. Went through a lot of incarnations. I mean, I remember he was a kick returner at one point. He was a starting quarterback.
Tore his ACL a few times, more than once or twice. Crazy career.
All right. On that note, speaking of crazy careers, defense special teams, Tommy Cutlets is back. And by that, I mean Tommy DeVito for the Giants. Are you targeting the Bucks against him?
I am. They're available in 86% of leagues. Not sure if, Giants benching Daniel Jones for Tommy Cutlets helps or hurts the Bucks defense this week. But either way, they have the 4th lowest implied team total. Should be able to get, a handful of sacks here. And that's basically as predictive as you can get when it comes to defense. I think there's a handful of defenses you could stream this week. Which one, hits will probably come down to a lucky, pick 6 or something like that. But I think The Bucks are a solid ad this week, and they open up the week as my number 5 defense.
Yeah, I mean, a few sacks. This guy had a 17% sack rate last year, and his pressure to sack numbers are just hideous, even going back to college. So you can actually build some sample size out to project that Tommy DeVito. I think I have him as the rare 4+ sack quarterback.
Oh,
at least, like his base, because he already has about 200 dropbacks in the NFL, and then, like I said, a whole college career where the same thing was happening. I like to look at pressure rate and then pressure to sack rate for each quarterback, so I can kind of separate the things and do projections like this. And yeah, he projects for quite a lot of sacks against the Bucs. Now, you're right though. He could be better than Daniel Jones as a thrower of the football. Daniel Jones just wasn't uncorking it on some deep throws. He needs to, kind of see a guy open. So DeVito could be better overall for the Giants, but he's going to take sacks either way. And that's the most predictive part of projecting defense, just the most sticky stat. Because pressure rate is actually pretty predictive, for both the offense and for both the offensive line and the defense. So the Bucs not great, but they're gonna, Bowles is off a bye, and he loves to draw up kind of some pressure. And the defense is getting healthier in the secondary. Jamel Dean might get activated. Some other guys are back. So because Bowles wasn't even blitzing a lot, and that's why they were getting torched by Kirk Cousins just sitting there, just 500 yards. Yep. So now, I think it's gonna be a different looking Bucs defense either way. Always trust Bowles coming off a bye to cook up something. I mean, what else is he good for these days? Got some exotic blitz packages, so good spot for the Bucs.
Holy shit! I haven't quite gotten to defensive projections yet, so didn't even notice DeVito's 37% pressure to sack rate.
Yes,
but that's fair. And
there's some
are you
data already?
Yeah. Oh yeah. That 4 sacks at least now. Now that I'm looking at it, but are you shocked that they went with DeVito? I'm kind of surprised they didn't go Drew Lock, or does it even matter at this point? They're just kind of.
Drew Lock was so bad that essentially the fan base rather have Daniel Jones, which tells you all you need to know about Drew Lock.
Okay.
And I know that most people probably remember Drew Lock. I think he won a game or two with the Seahawks a couple years ago as a backup, so he didn't look too bad, and we signed him. You know what happens.
Yeah,
turns horrible.
The spread look ahead was closer to pick'em, and now it's Bucks -5.5. I don't know if DeVito's a 5.5 point drop off from.
Well, it's not just that; it's Mike Evans should be back. Remember, Baker Mayfield was playing with nobody, so Evans should be back, and a bunch of guys on defense should be back. Plus, they got the bye. I mean, both teams got the bye, so I guess that's nothing. All right, but I was looking at that too. I think it's a combination of factors. But Baker Mayfield, he actually is back in my top 10 at quarterback because he's played really well with nobody, and now he's getting probably Evans back. McMillan should be back. I think he was active but didn't play against the Niners, so it's not all DeVito, but DeVito, he led the Giants to a few upset wins. He threw 8 touchdowns. His touchdown rate is actually above league average. So his sack rate is in the different stratosphere. But he can do some things. But when you're taking an opposing defense, you actually want a quarterback that is confident enough, because if not, you just get 1,000 run plays, which did happen with DeVito once. I think it was against the Jets in the game he took over. But eventually, he proved himself to the point where Daboll just kind of called a normal offense, and DeVito made some plays that Daniel Jones didn't. So, I think this is a good spot for the Bucs, and maybe even a dart throw for DeVito in some DFS tournaments as well, because if he gets pick 6, that just means or sack fumble 6, that just means another drive for him and the Giants. So you could even kind of reverse correlate that. They're my defense number 1, and Washington's also top 3 for me. They're available in 72% of leagues, so I highly recommend trying to get one of those 2. Both of them are not usually the defenses that we're targeting on a week-to-week basis, so they're probably at the bottom of that waiver list. But we know Dallas already without Dak Prescott, but looks like they're going to be without some offensive linemen, some key offensive linemen too. If we don't have the official injury reports from the Monday night game, but I know Martin went down, and I think a couple of guys in that line are injured. So this Dallas team is just not going to, and you just don't know where the emotions are, where the motive, where the willpower is at this point, because at home you get blown out, your quarterback's done, the media already has turned on you. Now you got to go on a road at a short week to face a team that's like, yeah, we got to get our quarterback back, right? He's been injured, a physical team. So this could be a disaster. And they're talking about the magic words you want to hear when you are streaming a defense, and that is, we want to get Trey Lance more involved.
Trey Lance.
Oh man, Trey Lance. What did he throw? 5 interceptions in a quarter in his last preseason start?
Yeah,
so
preseason.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So we, if we get some Trey Lance working in, that's massive upside. Trey Lance is just very mistake prone. Unfortunately for the Niners, who wasted a bunch of picks on him, but it all worked out. But yeah, Washington 10.5-point favorite at home. Long rest. So I think really good spot for the Commanders against Dallas. All right, let's close it out with kicker. We both like the same kicker. I know you wrote him up in your excellent waivers piece. So take it away.
Spencer Schrader of the Chiefs, available in 95% of leagues. He's now kicked for 3 different teams this season. Of course, he's filling in for Harrison Butker, who will be out for at least the next 3 weeks. So he could be a nice fill-in for you for, the next few weeks here. But he's made both of his field goal attempts this year, all 6 extra points. So really no concern in terms of accuracy yet for him. But this week, the Chiefs are at Carolina, so we should see plenty of scoring chances. Maybe the Chiefs are, less aggressive and settle for field goals at a higher rate if they get off to an early lead. But yeah, he opens the week as my number 4 kicker.
Yeah, same. And beggars really can't be choosers when it comes to kicker streaming, because, yeah, sure, no one's heard of Spencer Schrader. Even if he kicks for one of your teams, you probably haven't heard of him. But everyone's missing kicks this year. We just saw Tucker miss a few gimmies. McPherson, I had the Bengals. He just shanking them left and right. It's Moody. Remember, he missed 3 and made 3. It's everybody is missing kicks except the guy in Detroit, Bates, who we love coming into the year, and Brandon Aubrey, who doesn't get many chances to kick anymore because the team is just.
Well, he missed one too.
And he missed one too. But I'll give him credit because he's been locked in. But that's my point. It's even if you say, "Hey, I never heard of Spencer Schrader. Why am I going to pick him up?"
Right.
And trust him as we head down toward the fantasy playoffs. It's because kickers are just kickers, bro. That's why I leave them till the end of the show. They're hard to predict beyond just looking at the team's offense against the opponent, and the potential, the projected red zone stops or non-stops, and that's it. You just got to kind of, okay, that's the team's kicker, unless he's just horrible or in some outdoor weather, which there should sometimes is winning Carolina, but I don't see anything for this one. It looks like it's going to be clear and no wind. So yeah, I like Schrader as well. Top 5 kicker for me too.
Well, Chris Boswell, shout out Chris Boswell. 29 of 30, 9 of 10 from 50 plus. I don't know how far his missed field goal was, but it was beyond 50 yards. You mentioned weather. He might be kicking in a blizzard on Thursday night. So if you have him, you might need to be looking elsewhere.
Yeah, and
maybe.
I can't even. Who's a Browns kicker? You probably don't have him. That's for sure.
Oh, I don't. Dustin Hopkins. Oh, wait.
Yeah, he's been bad, right?
Aside from Taysom Hill, Dustin Hopkins is who killed our Browns bet.
There was a lot. There was a lot of things. A lot of things went wrong in that game, man. It always seemed like a possession away. It never really felt like the Browns. Yeah. Sometimes, I had the Bengals on Sunday night, but they were down 27-6. Whatever. Joe Burrow could score 5 touchdowns in 2 seconds.
Exactly.
With the Browns, it just never felt like they were close enough. So that's just that's on us. But that's gonna do it for our Week 13 waivers. Make sure to subscribe to the Fantasy Flex podcast so you don't miss an episode all season long. And be sure to check out fantasylabs.com for all of our fantasy football content, as well as DFS tools and models. Don't forget, Use promo code FLEX40 for $40 off right now. You can find Sean on X at @_oddsmaker. I'm at Chris Raybon. We're at those same handles on the free award-winning Action Network app. Until next time, let's get this money.